Hi, welcome to the next assembly video for the RepRap Prusa Mendel Iteration 2. In the last video, we connected the extruder to the X Carriage, and then we attached the X Carriage to the X axis. And in this video, we're going to attach the stepper motor to the XN and the XN idler, and then we're going to attach the GT2 timing belts to the X Carriage. Okay, and then so we will need the stepper motor, three 14mm M3 bolts, and the aluminum pulley. So first I'm going to install the aluminum pulley. Now this needs to be all the way down at the end of the stepper motor. So you want it all the way down to the end, but you might need to pull it back up a little bit to keep it from rubbing. So it needs to just leave like a millimeter or so in between the pulley and the base of the stepper motor there so that it doesn't rub. But so you just need to put it as far down as possible. Now I have one of the set screws aligned with the flat side of the shaft of the stepper motor. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten that up. And then tighten up the other set screw. Okay. All right, and then go ahead and mount this to the XN motor mount. Now I'm going to mount it so that the wires are facing downward, and I'm not going to use a washer. I'm just going to go ahead and put the bolt in. And mount it directly to the motor here. It's a possibility that that your XN motor mount might be a little skinnier, perhaps. You might need to use the 10mm M3 bolts, but this is going to fit with the 14mm just fine. So then go ahead and do the other two. In this case, you might need a skinnier screwdriver, or perhaps an extension for your screwdriver. It's feeling really good there. So here's a skinnier screwdriver. Fits in between there just fine. So it's the first time I've used one of these XNs, and it's really nice. I really like that a lot. Okay. Okay, so the motor's secure. Next we need to do the idler. The idler is pretty simple. We need the last piece of threaded rod here, the small piece, the last bearing, some M8 nuts. This is going to fit in to the side here, like so, with washers. Oh, okay. And at this point, you can use the bearing guide on here, or you can use the fender washers. I'm going to use the fender washers. I kind of prefer those. I'll get mounted on like so. I made some troubles. Instead of just taking it apart, I'm just going to put a nut on there real fast. There we go. So rather have most of the rod on that side. You don't need to use two nuts on that side, just one's fine. I just needed to get it, so I'm just going to have it mounted about even there on both sides. Tighten it up. This doesn't need to be super tight, just tight enough so that it doesn't vibrate off, and that not so tight that you crush the bearing or crush the plastic there. So that should be good. Okay, that side's done. Okay, next we will need to install the GT2 timing belt. So earlier we used 1/2 for the y-axis, so we'll be using the rest of it for the x-axis here. So one side goes around the motor, goes around the pulley, the aluminum pulley on the motor. The other side goes around the idler bearing, and I have a lot more belt here than I need, so I'm going to have to trim some of this. Go ahead and actually, I'm going to go ahead and pull it back. I'll trim the other side. Okay, and then for this we will need the last two GT2 timing belt clamps. And these do have nut holders in them. I'm going to use lock nuts on these. Okay, and these go on the top side of the X Carriage, and so that the groove side will grab onto the belt. And I'm just going to check here. I probably need the 14 millimeter. The 14 millimeter M3 bolts should work just fine on here. So this doesn't need to be tight. This doesn't need to. You don't need any tension on the belt yet, so you just need to get this lined up to about the center. I'm going to go ahead and run the bolt through the bottom of the X Carriage and into the bar clamp. I think I'm going to have to use a screwdriver on this. I apologize if you can't see too well from this camera angle. I'll move it in just a moment so that you can see. Probably could have drilled these holes out just a little bit, would have made this easier. Okay, there we go. Now, I'm not using any washers or anything on these. It's really probably not necessary. I mean, the plastic sort of acts as a washer. And the lock nut on the other side. It's going to hold it in place really good. And the heads on these bolts are big enough anyway, so it should be fine. Okay, so I want to run the bolts up a little ways first. These aren't lining up really that great, so there we go. Okay, now I've got it on there. So that seemed to be the easiest method, was to run the bolts in a little ways and then get the belt clamp centered onto it, and then put in the lock nuts and then finish driving it. So I have them, they're catching on the lock nuts now. So I'm going to go ahead and finish securing it here. Okay, that should be plenty tight enough now. And you can sort of test it just by pulling on it a little bit. But yeah, that feels great. So, all right, that side's done. Now we just need to wrap this around the bearing and get this installed on the other side. With this particular type of X Carriage, it has a built-in tensioner. The way this works is the cable goes through the first side here, and then a bolt and nut's going to go through the center, and the cable comes out the other side like so, and gets clamped down over here. And then the tension can be adjusted by driving the bolt down through the center. I have a lot of extra cable here. So you don't need a lot of tension on this. And before, there is a spot for a lock nut underneath. So you're going to want to go ahead and get that started before you clamp down. Wait, let me double check. Is there? Yeah. Yeah, so there's a space for a lock nut down here at the bottom. So you want to go ahead and get that started with a bolt. And I'm gonna try using a 14 millimeter. Let's go ahead and get that installed first, because that's going to be kind of difficult to install after we get the after we clamp down the belt. And again, these holes appear to be exactly 3 millimeters, so it doesn't give you a lot of space to. You can't just slide the bolt through. Oh, put the lock nut in upside down. Oops. There we go. Now I was going to get that threaded to the lock nut. There we go. All right, now that should be good. So now I have the bolt going through the X Carriage into the lock nut on the other side, and then I'm just going to run this cable up and through and get it clamped down right here, and then I'll use this to adjust the tension. To 14 millimeter. I'm going to go ahead and get these started first, because I'm sure I'm going to have the same problem on this side that I had on the other side. Okay. Two M3 lock nuts. I can go ahead and drive these in. Nice thing about having the tensioner is you don't have to like really try to reef on the cable to get it tight. You can kind of just leave it loose and get everything clamped down, and then tension it, which is really nice. Makes it a lot easier. And there's a few X carriages on Thingiverse, thingiverse.com, where you can download and maybe print off a new X carriage. Maybe one that has a tensioner, or a 3-bearing X carriage, or a 4-bearing X carriage, or there's lots of varieties on there. Okay, so that's good. Now I can adjust the tension using the tension bolt. Now you just need to make sure that it's lined up on the belt, and then just tighten it up. So let me see if I can put this on its side so you can see. So the belt is really loose here. I may have to put a longer bolt in there. But as I tighten the bolt, it pushes the belt down and gives it tension. Okay. And let me see. Oh, that actually feels like a really... that worked out just fine. So that's a really good amount of tension. Shouldn't have too many troubles there. You can see that. Yep, that's good. Okay, and I have a bunch of excess cable, so I'm just going to go ahead and cut that off and throw that away. Well, there we have it. Looks like it's working pretty good. Okay. Wow, this is really coming together now. So all we really have left is the end stop switches and the electronics. So stay tuned. We'll get those end stop switches installed, and then I will also walk you through the assembly process of the electronics. All right, thanks for watching.